Hi, Scrumptious Strawberries. I hope you're having a lovely day. Scrumptious. Hello, Scrumptious Strawberries. Hello, Scrumptious Strawberries. I can't. What's up, you Scrumptious Strawberries? I hope you're having a lovely day today, and welcome back to my series Finish This With Me, where I take a piece, start it offline, and then once I'm comfortable-ish enough to start recording, I bring it to the internet, bring you guys up to speed, and then we talk a little bit about art topics as I complete the picture and time lapse in the background. So today I'm working on a contest entry in this, oh boy, this piece. um, as you can see, this is a lot more detailed than any other piece you've ever seen on my YouTube channel, or if you've been following me on DeviantArt or any social media platform where I post my artwork, then ever. uh, there's multiple reasons for that. First of all, this is a contest entry to hopefully enter an art book. It's going to be a charity art book, and I'm really excited for it. I'm really working hard to just looking at references for multiple things, such as the things seen in this picture. I also took on a challenge from the artist Will Terry, who is a children's book illustrator I follow, who is also on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. And he posed a challenge to artists to draw 50 things. It's called hashtag draw 50 things. And really, it's like, there are certain guidelines to it. Furniture doesn't count, but ultimately you want to First, you want to draw 50 items in one picture, and technically humans and animals also count as items. I didn't really count them as items in this piece, but I just wanted to throw in a couple of extra just in case some of the things didn't count. But while you're doing the 50 things, the second thing you want to do is make sure you still have a clear composition, because that's one thing that really poses a challenge to artists trying to accomplish this sort of thing. It's things tend to start muddy. They tend to make the composition muddy because there's so many items, and the human eye is really easily distracted by all the things. So it's really important to still keep that clear composition in mind when you're trying to add all those details. So yeah. Anyways, so for this piece, the theme for the contest was holidays, and some people picked the traditional Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah. Actually, I don't know if anyone picked Hanukkah, but Halloween. I was gonna say Halloween. I don't know. Weird. But there are also things like National Ice Cream Day and World Art Day that people chose. And for me, I wanted to pick Grandparents' Day. It, I believe, is a 1 week after Labor Day. I think it's the Sunday after Labor Day. So I believe in 2018 it will be on the 9th of September. And it's just supposed to be one of those holidays, kind of just taking time to appreciate your grandparents and spend time with them. So for this picture, I thought maybe I'd have a little family, that the grandfather is a chef or was a pastry chef, and the granddaughter thinks maybe with her mom and dad that they should buy him a new hat or chef's cap. I put a little bow on it, so maybe she's like, I'll give it to him. And then he thinks that it'd be a great idea to make his wife, the grandmother, a batch of her favorite cookies. And then in this piece, I haven't drawn the cookies yet, only the ones that they're holding, because here he is trying to make the royal icing and trying to, decorate them, because you got to decorate them. But they're just kind of sneaking behind him, just like, shh, 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 we'll just have one. He won't mind. And of course, he knows. He's right there. But yeah, that was just something kind of cute I had in mind, and I thought it'd just be kind of a typical day in the kitchen. I also kind of like the idea of the piece maybe being able to be applied to any occasion, really. Yeah, I wanted this piece to be really cozy and homey, so nothing too amazingly boisterous, I guess is the word. But yeah, it still has a lot of heart, and I ended up taking a lot of inspiration from things I've seen in my daily life with my kitchen or growing up. So, like this tea kettle, I referenced the tea kettle I have at home. I just took some things that we have used to decorate our house, like this decoration here with the rose. That used to hang up in our living room, I believe. And I also just threw in a couple of little things. Got a little mouse here hanging out. And of course, the sleepy cat, he'll get it later. Maybe not. I thought maybe he'd be an old kitty. He's We've seen some things, but oh my gosh, that sounds so deep. I've seen some things, dude. Just an experienced older kitty. And then I also, for the base sketch, oh my gosh, all that mess. um, I'm also going to draw a German Shepherd, and she'll be trying to see, like, what are you guys doing? I want to help. And just a couple of other things. I got a skillet, maybe another pot hanging up on the wall here. Just a few more random details I'd like to draw on first before moving right to the coloring. And I definitely got to do the window as well. But and the cookie sheet. So there are a couple of other things, and I may add a few more random items just to really be sure I have over 50 items, because you never know. And I really wanted to get over 50 items in the piece. That was one of my main goals. So yeah, I think that's about it for now. Now that I've rambled on long enough, we can get into the art topic to do. Anyway, I'm gonna kick this in a time lapse, and I will talk to you guys in a moment. All right, now that you guys who have been wanting to get to the list of things to do with linear perspective are about ready to flip a table and be like, Barry, you're taking too long. I just want to thank you for being patient enough, because I do usually, for this sort of format, while I do love getting into the art topics, I just want to, as Finish This With Me goes, explain what exactly is going on with the piece and try and give you some insight into my mindset. So that being said, linear perspective. Whew. If you haven't already noticed, this piece has 1 point perspective in it, and I felt it was very relevant to the topic. And initially, I was going to discuss why it's important to tackle your weaknesses now, but I feel like there's something that needs to be said about linear perspective in particular, especially because I've noticed in YouTube, it could just be the artists I follow, but just in general, a lot of the artists don't practice linear perspective. They may have beautiful portraits and they may do a couple of environmental pieces, but they go with what they call like natural or organic perspective, where you use depth cues rather than actually mapping out certain um, either buildings or just different parts of the picture, which are also really important to conveying perspective. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think in Eastern Asia, for the longest time, they never used linear perspective because it was developed, I believe, in Italy. Don't hold me to that. I don't know much about art history, so I was like, huh, it was something I kind of read a long time back when I was studying perspective around, you know? So, for number one, what I want you to do is we're gonna do like a short little exercise, and that is, I want you guys to take a moment, if you're drawing right now, to just take a break for a second, and I want you to think about the kind of work that you're going to produce when you're at the top of your game. You know, we may not necessarily have an end goal because art is overall a journey, but when you're at a level that you can be really proud of your artwork, and that you aspire to achieve, what kind of art does that look like? Is it portraits? Is it abstract art, fine art? Is it comics? Maybe children's book illustration? Think about it. Does that artwork that you have, does it include environments? Does it include putting in backgrounds? Does it include linear perspective? For me, it does. And I realized that just along the way, that as much as I wanted to improve drawing people and animals and flora and fauna, and I wanted to start getting into drawing buildings too, is that this thing that I've been avoiding for so long has actually been in the back of my mind. Once you've thought about it and answered that question, I want you to ask yourself for number two. Another question is, does not knowing perspective hinder your ability to produce that kind of art, or to start you on the path to creating that kind of art? The best art that you can think of. And if you say no, that's fine. You know, there are many successful artists out there, graphic designers, character designers, fine artists with abstract art and certain, portraits. They don't necessarily need linear perspective. That's totally fine. If this isn't, you know, something that you see, in that future, then it's okay. But I have a feeling that a lot of you clicked on this video because the art that you want to create has linear perspective in it, and you're afraid, or you may think you're lazy. Although, truth be told, I don't think that being lazy, I think when people use the excuse of being lazy, it's a superficial tool or a superficial reason. I think that deep down, it's fear, and it's an actual desire to not want to do something, or because by default, human beings were meant to be searching for comfort. So, in order to do something that doesn't require us to be lazy, the reason why we don't do it is we just use that as an excuse. But I always think that deep down is something else. I don't believe in just being lazy. Because it could also just be a lack of prioritizing. But it's a lot easier to put perspective down as a lower priority when you would rather draw the things that you like drawing. And when I say like drawing, I mean things that come easiest to us. Say, drawing people or animals or flowers. So, if this has convinced you, even just the slightest, to maybe tackle linear perspective, because one thing I've learned, and I wanted to say for this, I wanted to talk about understanding why it's important to tackle your weaknesses now. It's only going to get worse from here on if you keep improving in every other realm, and you want to know linear perspective by the time you're at the top of your game. Everything else is just going to keep leveling up while linear perspective is just sitting here at the bottom. It's only going to get worse. And it's only going to feel worse because we're afraid to fail. And it's sad too, because when you were a baby, your parents didn't just say, you know what, you've been trying this walking thing for about a week now, and it's just not going anywhere. So we think you should just stop. We're not going to encourage you anymore. We're not going to do the whole clappy thing and say, come on, honey, come to mommy, come to daddy. No, we're just not going to do that. Of course not. You learned how to walk. And that's how it should be with everything in life. You should be able to be kind and patient with yourself when you're trying something new and scary. And that's number 3, actually. It's when you start this thing and you fail a bunch of times. And when I say fail a bunch of times, it may be years that you're failing. You got to be patient and kind to yourself. Words today. Because even after it takes years to learn it, if you're mean to yourself, you're going to be really resentful. And you're not going to look back on the memories of when you do reach the top of your game. You're not going to look back and be like, yeah, it's been a crazy ride. It was fun. You're going to think about it more like, ugh, now I have to keep doing this thing. It's going to get irritating. I have to keep maintaining it. Otherwise, if I don't keep practicing, then it's going to get worse. And I'm going to have to spend time doing it. No. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's one reason why also people avoid it, because, why would you want to think, or why would you want to feel that way? Why put yourself through that sort of torture? But when you get to a certain age, I looked at my analytics recently, and most of you guys are over the age of 18. So, there's no one really around. You're lucky maybe if you have a couple of friends or a spouse who can help dust you off and encourage you to get back in and try something in which you're going to fail again. So I think it's important just in general, and just if linear perspective isn't your weakness, but you're watching this and something else comes to mind that you're thinking is a weakness, remember this concept as well, because it's okay. We're going to fail a lot more times, and that kind of is part of the journey. And as long as you keep encouraging yourself and be patient, and when I say be patient, I don't mean go to the bonsai tree, meditate and pray to the almighty being or beings that you honor and revere and wish for being patient. No, I mean like going to the gym and working yourself to the bone. Okay, not working yourself to the bone, but working yourself out to fatigue, and then like breaking down that muscular tissue and feeling the lactic acid and soreness that is in your muscles and feeling the pain and burn, because patience is a muscle. You got to work it. You can't just hope someday you're going to be patient. No, in life, you have to deal with more situations that are going to test your patience, and that's how you learn it. I would not have been able to do this sort of piece 5 years ago. Heck, 10 years ago. Don't even, don't even want to think about it. It would not have been possible because I also would have been cruel to myself too. Like, you're this age, you can't even do this simple thing. Yeah, no, it's not all that fun. But I will say also, in the same breath, if you do try linear perspective and you realize that it's not working for you, and when I say when you realize it's not working for you, I mean not that it gets frustrating or that you really toil with it and it takes a long time. I mean, if you're tackling linear perspective and you realize that along the line, this isn't the type of stuff you want to do, if the goal that you had, that end game, or I say end game, but that at the top of your game, when the answer to question number one changes to something that isn't linear perspective inclusive, then we like to say for number four is just remember that you can always walk away. You don't have to do it. If it's not your goal anymore, if it's not something that you feel is necessary, then you don't have to do it. You can walk away at any time. That's something too, I feel like as adults that we take for granted, because I've also, not to get too dark or anything, but there are some cases where some kids at home aren't having a good, they aren't doing well, and they can't leave because they're a minor and they'd get in trouble. But when you reach 18, at least in the United States, because most of you guys are in the United States also, but shout out to anyone else in the world. Hi. um, when you reach a certain age, you can just walk out at any time, and it's up to you to take care of yourself and do what's best for you. And with linear perspective, oh my gosh, this is such a big jump. But um, yeah, but just anything really. It could be a bad relationship or just something that doesn't really give you any energy, or it doesn't tie into what you want to do at the end of the day. Then there's no reason why you need to force yourself. Because see, there's a difference between trying to delay gratification, or in this case, dealing with the burn that is learning this. There's a difference between that and then realizing I actually don't really want to create art like that anymore. And not because you feel like you're forcing yourself to, but more like things just gotta change in life. The type of art that I want to do 20 years from now, I don't even know. Maybe I might want to dip into abstract art. But for me personally, I still want a no linear perspective for what I want to do. There are so many pieces that I thought I would have like this amazing idea that seemed really in depth and detailed, but because I would always think to myself, well, I don't have the skill set to do it, I wouldn't even try. And I feel like there are a lot of other people out there who feel the same way. And ideas, they're kind of precious, especially when you know people who have art block or who struggle to find ideas or to pursue any ideas that they have. So I want to try and do as many of those things, or, act upon those ideas. It gets even worse too if you just write down the idea and then you don't do it, because you end up, once you have learned the thing, that you have a ton of other ideas or client work and you don't have time. So you look at this list of unfinished projects or things that you haven't even or attempted yet. It can be really demoralizing. But, you know, for those of you who, I'm hoping this has maybe at least turned a little switch on and as encourage you to maybe at least try and put in a little bit of effort to just spend 5 minutes on linear perspective. Then make it fun. That's number 5. Make it fun. And what I mean by that is one of the things that I did, because I feel like one of the most fun ways for me to learn is to actually test out this concept that I'm learning in a piece that I have an idea for. So last year, if you were following me around the time of the Disney Drawing Challenge, I did a piece called, uh, well, it was the piece for the theme. Can't remember what I called it. It was a Disney slumber party. And what I did was I did a 2-point perspective drawing of a bunch of the characters. I did Lilo and Stitch, Vanellope Von Schweetz, Wreck-It Ralph, and Alice from Alice in Wonderland was sleeping kind of in the corner. And I drew a scene that I thought would be fun and hilarious. And I still look at it back on it now and kind of giggle because, it's the typical thing where you draw on some people draw on someone's face when they fall asleep. I don't recommend you guys do that. I've had it happen to me. It wasn't fun, but it's totally believable. But one of the fun things I did was I made this room and did furniture that was themed after food. And when you break down shapes, or when you break down people and furniture and whatever it is that you'd like to draw into the most basic of shapes, you usually end up with cylinders, circles, cubes, very basic. And you can start building from there with linear perspective. You can draw a cube and then put dots on it, and boom, you got a die. You can start at least a 6-sided die. Don't get into like the 20-sided die from the get-go. Oh my gosh. But you know what I mean? You can start making, once you've learned a cylinder, you could maybe make a cupcake. Or, all it is really is kind of a triangle on top of a square. You gotta method it a little bit, but you start from the basics of basics and make it fun and put your own little spin on it. Because I think that was one of the hardest things for me to learn linear perspective in school. I took an art class my freshman year of high school, and we just had to do cubes, and it was the most boring thing. Because I also feel like that's another thing too. With color, you can do a bunch of crazy things with it. Even, with sketching, you get to draw your own characters. But with linear perspective, you're forced to go back to the most fundamental of fundamentals. And yeah, so if you can start building from there and come up with your own things you can plot out with it, then go for it. Because, like I said before, you could go through this whole thing. You can take this message that I'm sending you and start practicing linear perspective and just be bored and just not enjoy yourself at all. But then, do you really want to look back and at the journey? Because it's about the journey. Do you really want to look back and think about how tedious and tiresome it was? No. You do want to appreciate that you worked hard, but, turn it into a game. You got to get a little more creative with it, especially because we're creative people. You can totally do that. But yeah. So just to recap, 1 of this list, think about the kind of work you want to produce at the top of your game. 2, answer the question, does not knowing perspective hinder your ability to produce art you want? 3, once you do start taking on perspective or tackling any of your weaknesses, be patient and kind to yourself. Think of it like a baby that's learning to walk. You got to encourage yourself and be that person to practice self-compassion and be open to failing. Number 4, remember that at the end of the day, there's no one forcing you to do it. You don't have to. If your goals change, then you can always walk away. And then number 5, have fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this piece. I am super, super, super proud of this piece. I can't even tell you, I've been just just been digesting while staring at it, because I've never, made a piece this detailed before in my entire life, and with linear perspective included, if you can believe that. So I feel like I just took a step closer to the top of my game, and I hope I can do more pieces like this in the future. Thanks for sitting with me, guys, and I hope you're able to also complete a drawing along the way. Until next time, guys.